Welcome to Unplug with Mel. I'm your host, Mel Mosier. We are ecstatic to kick off this podcast journey with the amazing Rachael Coukoulis, our first guest of this podcast. Rachael has played a pivotal role in bringing this to life, contributing her insights as we crafted the vision for this platform. She's not only a dear friend of mine, but she's also the reason why Unplug with Mel has a name. I continued to send her a bunch of them, and finally when we got to this one, she claimed it. This is the one, and it feels like a perfect fit. As we get to this first episode, Rachael, a driven leader, shares her inspiring story that resonates with the essence of infinite growth. We hope you find inspiration in her journey and the meaningful conversations to come. Sit back, relax, and join us on this exciting adventure. Unplug with Mel is available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and more. Thank you for tuning in. Let the journey begin. And I have the honor of introducing Rachael Coukoulis. Did I say it?
Coukoulis. Very, very close.
I was trying.
Honestly, though, it's very rare that I've met anybody that can say my last name right the very first time. So I always joke around. I'm like, I'm like Beyonce. It's just Rachael, and that's it. Just a first name.
I'm just Mel.
Just a first name.
I'm just Mel.
Exactly. Yeah. Rach, Mel.
I'll answer to Mel. If you say Mel Mosier, I'm in probably some sort of trouble. Well, she is an honored guest for our podcast today, and we're going to go over a few things today, and I hope you enjoy it. It's episode number 1, and so for a brief moment of Unplug with Mel, it's to tell your story and inspire infinite growth. And I met Rachael 2 years ago?
Yeah, it's been about a little over 2 years.
It was 2021 during Vegas, but we didn't know it.
We didn't know it yet. We didn't know that we knew each other, which is one of my favorite stories.
Well, go ahead and tell it.
Rewind back to HR Tech in Vegas. My company, Paylocity, asked for me to go and represent the sales team for us over in Vegas, and me and one of my good girlfriends that I work with, who also was with me in the Dallas area, Miss Callie Davis. We were the 2 salespeople out of the whole country that was picked to go, which I was shocked. I'm like, I feel like I don't have enough tenure to be here, but I'm not going to argue with a free trip to Vegas for a week. So we were there, and of course it was the first year after COVID. So familiar, and she looks like I've seen her. And we get talking and we scream out almost like instantaneously, sure! Yes, and of course I saw you and I instantly recognized the bright, beautiful red hair, and I was like, wait, I know you. We've talked before.
6 degrees of separation.
Yes.
Because we met in Vegas, and we just have to do this little blurb for your friend Callie. Hi, Callie.
Hi, Callie.
We get to talking, and she was over your department, right?
No, she was just on my team, a fellow coworker at the time before she got promoted to director. Very well deserved.
But we got talking, and she's living in Matagorda, which is where I was from when I moved to Midland, and I actually knew of her family out there, and I have actually shopped at her store out there.
Yeah, when it first opened. Matagorda Outfitters, go check it out.
Like, how coinky dink,
What a small world, right?
And we're back not in live, but in person here to do this podcast, because we're actually at HR Southwest. She's back here supporting Paylocity. I'm launching the podcast. I'm also the member of Texas SHRM as president-elect for PB SHRM. That was a whole mouthful I just said. But all it means is that we're out here to learn and train and develop, and the biggest thing is connection and networking. And so, Rach, I just like for them to know who you are. So I don't give bios, you do. So tell them about yourself. Tell them where you're from and what you do and community and your projects. So make them
all
like
things.
You, like I like
all
you.
All the things. Well, first of all, I want to rewind for a second, because I think you slid really quick past being president-elect for the SHRM chapter. That's amazing, and that's huge.
It's going to be a good deal in 2025.
I'm so proud of you and everything that you've been doing. For everybody that's listening or watching, whichever, I had the pleasure of going to the first official SHRM Expo that you put on for Permian Basin.
Yep. Sold out.
In the Midland, Odessa area, and it was one of the most top-notch expos that I've been to, and it had such an awesome turnout, and just everybody that was there just enjoyed themselves. They took so much out of the different speakers and whatnot. So I wanted to take a second first and tell you that you're just absolutely kicking butt, and I'm so excited to see what you do now sliding into this new role with PB SHRM. So she slid past that real quick, so I wanted to kind of reel that back for a sec, because you're not
it's about her today, not me.
But I'm like, I know you're not one to ever, boast about your accomplishments, so I would love to do
I'm
that.
honored out here with HR Southwest. You get to speak tomorrow.
I do. I have the pleasure of going on stage tomorrow and introducing Paylocity to a very large crowd from what I saw walking into the ballroom today. I walked in, I'm like, all right, we're gonna go back to my journalism days way back when the public speaking was what I did every single day. But I'm so excited. And then I get to introduce one of our keynote speakers, and then I get to work the conference for Paylocity the next 2 days and see who else I can meet. And I always love working these conferences so much. And I mean, case in point, this is how I met you. So I'm very excited.
And so we're going to move right into our first question here. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
So, of course, Unplug with Mel is about telling your story to inspire infinite growth. And I want people to hear Rachel's story. And so the first question up is, can you take us through your journey, and share some key moments or experiences that shaped who you are today?
Yeah, so I guess let's rewind a little bit back. I'm originally from Arizona, so I've only been in Dallas for a little over 8 years now, which everybody tells me that I have to be here at least 10 years to call myself a Texan officially. I feel like I'm pretty much there. I'm like, but what's so funny is I moved here for a job after college, and I went to Arizona State, and I actually went for the journalism school. I went to the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism, and that scholarship that I got there is the only reason why I stayed in Arizona. I had been telling my mom since I was 13 years old that I am getting out of Arizona. I want to go see the States. I want to go see the world. I want to, I felt like my calling was outside the borders of just Arizona, right? And so when I graduated college, when I tell you I was ready to get out, I did it in a little over 3 years. I was just fast-tracked. I'm like, I want to get in, get out, get my degree, and go. Which
was Texas your choice that you wanted to move to? Like, you knew early on Texas was it?
I actually didn't even have Texas on my radar, because at the time I'm like, oh, it'd be great and super cool to live in New York. It'd be cool to live in LA, And then, as you go out into the world and you're responsible for your own rent, and I'm like,
right?
Maybe not. Maybe let's see what else is out there. And it turned out that Texas was the only other place that I had family. So it just kind of worked out very well. I had my dad's sister out here and her kids as well. So it's just kind of that extra safety blanket of like, okay, I'm completely on my own. I don't know anybody. I don't know anything. But if anything were to happen, I have somebody within driving range that can come and help. Heaven forbid.
Which is totally necessary when you're single and in a new city.
Oh, it was challenging. And I would say this, moving to Dallas and knowing absolutely no one, knowing absolutely anything about where I was moving, I accepted a job to come and open up and start a marketing department for a company under Fidelity way back when. Way back when. And so what's really cool is, in my past life, as I like to say, originally in journalism, like I mentioned, which my original goal was to be a broadcast journalist on the ESPN network for NFL. That's what I wanted to do. I'm a diehard Chiefs fan. Have to shout that out for my father. He'd be very upset.
Go Dad.
Diehard Chiefs fan from birth, even though everyone likes to give me, slack about being a bandwagoner because of Mahomes coming from Tech. I'm like, y'all, I don't care about college football. I know I might get some people angry at me about that statement, but
I mean, we're in Fort Worth near Dallas.
I
You
know.
didn't say you were a Cowboys fan, so we're both gonna get hate because I'm not a Cowboys fan either.
hey, you know, there's enough cowgirls to go around,
Yeah.
cowgirl fans to go around. I'm just kidding.
She did it.
I actually do love going to the Cowboys games. I've gone to the Cowboys Open in the last couple of years.
I love football games in general, and I'll root for pretty much all teams, but I'm homegrown Texan and outside Houston, so grew up watching the Houston Oilers, and my daddy would
How
be
did it
proud.
switch
Where you went from wanting to be the broadcaster for ESPN and turn into sales and marketing for payroll.
For a payroll and HRIS company. Yeah, I know. If you asked me when I graduated college if I thought I would be doing this, I'd be like, that sounds so lame. What is that? But here I am, loving my job, love my company. But it's just so funny how as I went throughout college, which was so cool, at my college, all of my professors were part-time, and in their actual career, their positions were what they were teaching us. So my print teacher was the one who ran the Phoenix Business Journal. My broadcast teacher, professor, was Aaron Brown, the longtime CNN anchor. My public relations professor was, you remember that major oil spill that we had, like, what was it, 10 years back, 15
BP?
years? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
She was the one who headed that PR team to, I mean, that's a job in itself. She kind of told us a little bit about what that time was like for her and running that team, and that's actually what, well, besides the fact that, you know, I like to live a champagne lifestyle, and you can't do that on a natty light budget. And unfortunately, in journalism, it's broadcast specifically, you're gonna have to move somewhere to some little town that no one's heard of, and, you know, earn your stripes for 4 or 5 years, and then hope you get, you know, a shot at the big time. And I'm like, I don't have time to be poor for like 8 years, 9 years. And by poor, I mean, you know, not poor, but you know what I'm talking about. It's just,
You would be self-sufficient.
mm-hmm, 100%. And so I'm like, okay, it seems like PR is the dark child of journalism. They make a lot of money, so I'm gonna go that way. And so then I kind of switched my focus to public relations, which I loved. I worked for Banner Health, which is kind of the Texas version of Baylor, in Arizona, and I did the PR for the children's hospital out there. And so absolutely loved doing that. I interned there for, I think, about a year and a half or so. Loved it. I would have worked there easily, but unfortunately nobody ever left any positions there because they loved it. And so that's kind of what made me really look out of state and see, okay, what other options are out there. And I came and visited my aunt, and they kind of showed me all around Dallas. I stayed out here for about 2 weeks, and I'm like, okay, it's not just a vacation. I'm actually understanding what it's like being out here. And that's kind of what made my decision. I'm like, okay, this is a great state of Texas. I'm a fan. So yeah, I accepted a job out here, going more into the marketing and sales side, to pretty much come in, design a website for this company that was a little bit behind on technology and their advertising, all of that. And so did that, and I packed my bags and never looked back. I was planning on being in Texas for a year and then going somewhere else.
I love when we set plans in motions,
Mm-hmm.
and we're like dead set, only this amount of time, and then we look back, we're here for a decade.
That is literally me. I was looking back on that, how I'm like, I only wanted to be here for a year. I'm gonna go somewhere else, like Seattle or somewhere, you know, really cool, this, that, and the other. And Texas is on my heart.
You found
plan on
Dallas,
being
and
here.
I found Midland. And if you would have told me now I'll be there 6 years as well, that I'd be living in Midland, I'd be like, where's
I'm
Midland
like,
on the map?
Exactly.
So, well, thank you for telling us how you got here.
Yeah. It's been a very wild ride, but it's funny because when I first moved here, I was barely 21. And so now just kind of looking back, fast forward, just turned 30 in August, turned that turned that corner, which loving my 30s so far. Everyone says that's the best years of their life.
I want to segue into what's coming up next, because even though you are young and you've moved out and everything, I'm sure that was probably a significant challenge, or even maybe you've had some setbacks on finding your right job, or just what have you occurred,
Yes. So I was thinking about this for a bit before you kind of mentioned just brainstorming about the main setbacks or obstacles that's happened in my life that's really shaped me for who I am and where I am today. And one of the biggest is definitely moving somewhere, leaving my entire family, who I'm very, very close to, my entire family behind, moving somewhere where I am, like I said, I knew no one, I knew nothing, and I was starting a new job in corporate world. And that came with a lot of challenges, not having, my dad and my mom down the street to help me with the little challenges. When my toilet breaks, when, my car needs fixing of some sort. And so really challenged me to the core, and it taught me a lot about who I am and more than anything what I'm capable of at least that age. And I know that you just mentioned that 30s being such a decade of growth, which is funny. I'm so excited to see what that growth will look like for me in the next 9 years, because I feel like my 20s were the biggest years of growth for me. And kind of going back to the challenges, I know that I mentioned that I moved out here for a job and moved my entire life, dropped everything and left. Well, fast forward a little over a year into that job, and I'm getting my bearings. I'm understanding what corporate world is like. I've been fully on my own from a financial standpoint since I moved out. My parents are the most supportive, wonderful people that you could ever have in your corner, and my dad taught me at a very young age that if you want something, you have to work for it. He gave me his car and passed it down and whatnot to me when I was 16, but before that he told me that I had to get a job at 15, which I did, and work and save enough money to buy a car. And once he saw how much I had saved, I think it was, I don't even remember, it was like maybe $5,000, for just like a dinky car. He ended up giving me his and letting me use that to put in my savings. And so just stuff like that, really teaching me at a very young age that.
And that might set you apart in your 30s, that you've done all this growth in your 20s, because you've kind of done it on a right trajectory. And 30s is either going to be more growth into it or some motivation into your passions, into your next step with your career. Everyone's journey is different.
I'm really excited to see what the 30s will look like, because I finally feel like I have things figured out.
You're an emerging leader, so no telling what's
going to. It's especially being in Dallas and in the industry I'm in. One thing I realize is the world is kind of my oyster, and it's so exciting. Just because the opportunities out here are endless, the people that you can meet.
It's a great mindset to have.
Those setbacks that really shaped me. I would say the first real life, almost kick in the face that life gave me was a year into my job that I moved out here for. Without warning, they completely shut down the entire department. And it was, I remember very clearly, it was right before the holidays. It was in October. They brought us in. They're like, hey, nothing y'all did. We just are going to be allocating funds. We're shutting down the marketing department. And this is coming from 15 levels up of somebody sitting at a desk somewhere across the country, you name it. And and they pretty much said it, I think it was noon, and they're like, yeah, you can leave now. And so I'm honestly going back to that exact moment when I called my dad after, and I just sat in my car bawling, crying to him, feeling like an absolute failure. Of course, it wasn't my fault. It was nothing that I did, but at that moment, I felt like all eyes were on me from my family and my friends, and they saw me take this leap out here and really trying to do something
That pressure.
My life and that pressure that not exactly they were putting on me. I was putting it on myself.
Yourself. We're the worst critics with that.
Oh, 100%. I'm my own worst critic and my biggest critic.
Preach, girl.
But also I feel like that's such a double-edged sword because it's also a good thing at the same time.
We can motivate ourselves with it. Our goals, our motivation to it. Yeah,
there's no one I need out there to motivate me because
you got it.
I already am on my own motivation in that end. Pretty much, I mean, my dad was like, all right, this is a setback. What are you gonna do? And I'm sitting here, I'm like, well, I'm not moving home. But at that time, I think maybe 22, I'm not smart with my money in any way. I was not saving the way that I should be saving. Spending money like crazy because I had it. I had a solid. So just that was a big life lesson for me. And so either I had two choices. I figure it out. During the holidays, nobody was hiring. I, kind of looked for a little bit there, and either A, I figure it out, or I move back home. And I sure as heck was not doing the second one. So it was definitely one of those situations where it shaped my next moves and really me as just an adult, and where I learned a very hard lesson then. And so what I did was I went right back into what I know. Before I moved to Dallas and got a job, I bartended through college, and so
that's another thing we have in common. We go back to bartending.
Yes, went right back to bartending, and so and it kind of worked out well because when I went back to bartending, I had not really made any friends out in Dallas, and it was so challenging to me because I'm left my whole support system at home, and bartending really gave me that opportunity to meet a bunch of people. And so even today, some of my friendships that I made when I was bartending just in Dallas has networked me and opened up different areas, even in my career today. A lot of them run a lot of different restaurants now, and they're the GMs out in Dallas, and they have payroll, they have a need for all of that. So that was one of, I think, the biggest challenges, and pivoting and understanding exactly what my next move was. Do I want to stay in marketing? Because honestly, I didn't really enjoy it that much. I realized that once you're no longer designing websites for fun, it's not that fun. It
turned into a job.
It turned into a job, and I wasn't enjoying it as much. So then I pivoted, and I'm like, all right, let's go to sales. And that's when I went into staffing and headhunting. I worked for Kelly Services, and I headed their commercial division out in Texas. And I tell everyone to this day, if you want to learn the true grit of what it takes to be successful in sales, go into staffing.
Oh yeah, I can see it.
Well, you're dealing with the most unreliable variable on earth, which is people. And so, but of course that is, it was very challenging. For every one great day at work, you had 100 days where you just got your face kicked in and a door closed on you. But I think that 100% shaped me and gave me the tools needed to especially pivot into this job now with Paylocity. And of course I met Callie at Kelly. She headed the IT side for staffing, and so
I think I knew that y'all met at Kelly.
Yeah, so I've known Callie for about 8 years now, almost 8 years. We were actually just talking about that. We're like, oh my gosh, we've known each other for a long time now, which is so cool.
See her growth and her family.
Yeah, her growth. I mean, when I met her, it was just her and her husband, and now she has 2 beautiful baby girls, and it's just been so cool being kind of able to watch every single
in the journey, networking, collaborating, and watching you grow. I guess beautiful.
Yeah,
you said something in there with the setbacks and challenges and stuff, and I know, calling your dad and all that stuff, you have resources, but in those moments, I'm pretty sure you had some doubts or feelings of, you said failure, but how did you stay motivated and maintain your focus on your objectives? Like, as you said, you set your goals for yourself out here. You didn't want to go back home. You're pulling on your bootstraps, is like what I like to call it. Because it's almost like your dad says, well, what are you going to do about it? And he's like, are you going to, ship up and shape out? Or are you going to give up and pout out? Like, what are you going to do in those moments? So what were your strategies to help you through that? Because I know everyone doubts and everyone feels like they're a failure in some form of capacity.
Yeah, that's a great question. And honestly, I think my biggest motivation was also my level of stubborn that I am.
Ooh.
Like, I absolutely refused to move back home because I had so many people that were like, Rachel, like, moving to a new city by yourself, like, you know, you don't have your support system. That's not a good idea. Why would you ever do that? And I absolutely refused to go back home with my tail between my legs and be like, you guys are right. I couldn't make it out there on my own. I'm back here relying on my friends, my family, my network I already had, when I knew that what I could do with my career went so far past that. Not saying, you know, past my friends and my family, they're everything to me.
But past the naysayers' belief of you, you had something to prove.
Yeah, 100%. And I knew that if I moved back home, I was throwing in the towel and kind of saying, you were right, I couldn't do this. And so also what motivated me too is just my mom and my dad growing up and seeing their work ethic. They instilled that in me at a very young age, and just throwing in the towel and quitting was never an option for them. I mean, my mom, which my mom actually used to work in the aerospace sector. She used to actually build the Apache helicopters or help design them. And before she decided to be a stay-at-home mom with me and my brother, and just seeing her work ethic in whatever she did, whether that was her previous job or you know, working in the school district for my brother and I to kind of be on the same schedule as us, and watching my dad support his family. And they didn't have the opportunity to just be like, you know, I just don't really feel like working. I don't really feel like making this work. I don't really feel like, you know, being responsible for my own outcome of my life anymore. And that was instilled in me and my brother at a very young age. And so I think also my motivation was not letting them down either. They were so proud of me for what I was doing, moving out here by myself. They were scared out of their minds having their baby girl 2 states away, of course.
But they wanted you to succeed. They wanted you to find yourself in it, like any parent would as a mom.
Of course.
You know, I see that and stuff. Would you say that it might not be just stubbornness, but it's more a form of holding yourself accountable for what you know, you're choosing your steps of life? And I found that when we hold ourselves accountable to what we set forth on, it kind of continues to motivate us even in the doubts and the failures.
Holding yourself accountable is the one thing that I think everybody needs to learn to do. And what's shocked me is the more I've grown into my career, and I've worked with many professionals in multiple industries, it's shocking to me how many people don't hold themselves accountable.
It is a skill set that I see as selective.
And that just blows my mind, because how are you supposed to accomplish any of your goals?
Which I think in that terms you saw a lot in staffing, because you're reaching out for talent for the right companies, and you can't even get the interviewee to show up on time.
Exactly.
And I'm in HR, so like if anything I had to vent on that is the effort into recruiting and onboarding, and they don't show up for their first day of training. I'm like,
it's beyond stressful, and that's why I'm so thankful for my days in staffing, but you could not pay me enough money to go back. I learned what I needed to learn, and I will continue to take that with me, but we don't need to go back there. It was definitely an amazing learning experience, and I worked with amazing people, but then I was brought over to Paylocity, actually from Cali, which is so awesome that we've kind of been able to have a couple of jobs together.
Well, I love the networking and collaboration that y'all work together in Kelly, and she saw something in then. So when she moved over, when there was an opening, she's like, I got the perfect person. Let's bring in Rachel. And she knew you would succeed in that. And I love that when I do that, when I hear other people's stories in there, there's a semblance in that where people are like, yeah, you know, if I find that right talent pool and their colleagues or we've networked, I'm going to give them a call. Like, hey, are you interested?
Yeah.
And then they go and find their niche, their market that they need to be in. And it's really cool for you and Kelly to not only be friends, but also to be colleagues and get to experience life together. That's rare.
we always say we're like, it's pretty cool, and we're lucky that our work besties turned into our real life besties. So I, of course, if she was here, she would also pipe in and say that it took her year and a half longer to get me to Paylocity than it should have.
You were a little reluctant?
Wasn't even reluctant. A job opened on the Paylocity team, and I told her, I'm like, hey, you are absolutely loving it. I would love to have an opportunity to interview, because I trust you, and her and I are the exact same person when it comes to sales and how we are. And but right before that, I want to say it was the week before, I signed an offer letter for a startup company to kind of go in and really start helping build their sales team. And so of course I was like, well, I can't just, back out of that. That's not morally what I want to do. Now, of course, I look back, and if I should have just done it, because the new job, it was great, didn't work out. It was one of those where the offer letter had diamonds spewing out of it, and gold, and
over delivered on, or over, what is it?
Over promise, under deliver. But and they didn't really make it through COVID. So that's actually when I started at Paylocity, was September 2020, in the midst of COVID. And that also was another obstacle that made me question if I was even cut out for sales anymore. Because I went from...
Oh, that's the second time, yeah.
It was, first of all, Paylocity doesn't hire many people out of industry. Callie and I are one of the few that they did at the time. Now they've opened that gate up a little bit more, but
they're realizing, expand your talent pool.
I know, I'm always like, find some people from the staffing world. That's where you'll find some good talent. But it went to, everything was locked down. All you could do was call people, email people. The last thing people wanted to do when working from home with their kids running around everywhere trying to simultaneously teach them third grade math is answer the phone and talk to somebody that maybe they don't need to talk to, maybe they don't feel like they need to talk to. And so that was, while simultaneously learning an entire new industry that was like drinking from a fire hose for 10 months straight. It was the most challenging job I have ever walked into, and also the most rewarding.
Those are the best jobs.
It by far, and I say this to everybody that asks me, not just anybody that might be watching this from my executive team, but Paylocity, I will retire with them. If the growth and the opportunity is there, I absolutely love the company that I work for. I love just how they value their people and their employees, and especially just getting back from my first President's Club with Paylocity in Costa Rica, which was, they went over the top.
Divine.
It was just
divine. I always like, can you take me in your luggage?
I know, I'm like, I'm already planning my trip back there. I was lucky enough to be able to extend about a week and a half longer afterwards, taking advantage of the time I don't have kids yet. Looking forward to when I do. Love kids, but hey, if I don't have anything I need to rush back to, why not stay in Costa Rica a little longer? But just being there with everybody and really seeing the culture and the value that Paylocity focuses on, and the emphasis they have on their people, and not just me as a salesperson, but who is Rachael? What is going on way past just the professional side of her and her life?
You.
And it's really hard to find companies like that.
I was just about to say that it's a rare quality of companies now in this, I guess, century that is people focused, not stats focused.
Yes, exactly. And I've worked for both. And Kelly Services was another company that was so heavily focused on their people, and I loved it.
So you kind of figured out that's where you thrive.
I figured out that's where I thrive. That's where, I've been a part of very unhealthy work environments too. And
when I coach people in it, when they're stuck in their, it's just job mentality or whatever, we dive deep in, well, what's about this employer that's driving you to question everything, or what's, as an employee, what's driving you into this? And a lot of it, they'll find out that they're, like it's that saying, a round hole in a peg. You can't put someone into a company and it doesn't work. If your morals, your values, your mission did not align, you're not going to be successful. And it's okay to pull out as soon as you realize that. No one's looking, and I take this in the HR world, no one's looking at your resume that close up to see that you're leaving a company every year. Now there's a pattern of behavior. You're doing it for the last 10 years and you're only
That's
lasting.
a behavior.
That's a behavior.
That's worth asking.
It's not always the employer. But if you left a company within the year and then you started a new one, you're there for 5 to 7 years, okay, you found your place. And now you're here interviewing for another job because you're ready for the next level normally. But it's okay. I mean, in my 20s, I really thought it was the thing that I needed to find the right career, the right job, and stay there for 40 years. That was the mentality where we lived.
Well, that's what we were taught growing up. I mean, my dad was he just retired about a couple months ago. Love that. He joined my mom, who retired a little earlier this year. He was at Wells Fargo for, I'm probably not going to get the exact right number, but like 36 years, 37 years. And that's just what we were told.
We saw our grandparents do it. We saw our parents do it. And then now in the, I want to say the growth of the industry of work, no longer the 9 to 5, working from home, hybrid. COVID kind of helped streamline remote. But again, even remote company might not be the niche if you need face-to-face. Remote's not for me.
I mean, I'll even admit I'm fully remote. I was actually remote before COVID hit. My last position at Kelly was pretty much remote. And I love it because it gives me that freedom. I feel like I'm so much more productive having full control over my schedule and whatnot, and being able to break it up and, take my dog for a walk a couple times throughout the day. But I do miss the opportunity and being able to have that social side to work. And
well, it's good that you get to go to these conferences and stuff, so you get to plug in there.
Exactly.
I mean, I could not do remote full time. I don't know if I did hybrid and I was in the office, or that's something maybe in the future that I look for alignment on. But for right now, like parents who decide to leave whatever calling was to go into the school district because they want that 7 to 3, so they're there for the kids. I did the same thing. Oil and gas, I worked like 5 a.m. in the morning to 6 p.m. at night, and then I did it again. But then when COVID hit, I was like, you know what? Here's an opportunity, isn't there? And I found a niche into, but I didn't have those hours right away. I had to work to it. But you set that vision for yourself and for your own, like one day you will want children, or you'll have children, and you'll have it aligned to where it'll work out perfectly. And so now, for the first time in my life, I'm picking my kids up from school every day,
which is
it's
having
huge.
That freedom is huge.
It's
having
huge.
the ability to do that is everything.
But I thrive in the environment of my employer because I didn't have any go to my my GM and be like, okay, I'd like to restructure my hours so that I can be there for my kids. How would you like to restructure? I'm like, would it work if it was like 7:30 to 3? And he was like, no, I don't. You get your job done, you get your deadlines done, let's do this. So no longer having that micromanager over your shoulders. Did you get the report done? Is that project done?
Oh, I had somebody that once they sent someone after me because I was in the bathroom for too long when I was actually on the phone talking to my mom about a family matter. Like I was turned off of that very
early on. Well, look how much further advanced you are in it, because I'm hitting 40 and I have had those bosses that 1 minute late.
You're
not leaving to 5 o'clock on the dot. If you've left at 4:58, no. Not,
if you
call
are back from lunch
because you're
2 minutes late.
I've been a mom since I was 18, and they were just not the compassion or empathy in the workforce at that time, in the late 90s, early 2000s, where they really chose their people. They didn't. They chose the reports, the status, the profit.
They chose having the job get done rather than the person who's doing it.
And that's why the turnover was what it was. Now, we're just trying to find the right person for the right position and hope it's a good fit. Hiring's always a gamble. Because in the interview, they're giving you their first impression.
Their best version
of themselves. On paper, it looks good. But when you do make the initial job offer and you get them in, within that first 60 days, you kind of can start seeing who they are. And that's why we have the 90-day rule normally, because if at 90 days you start to see them
Yep.
You know, that they go up, they peak, and then they come
Mhm.
down. And usually, if they're consistent, about 6 months into it, you start to see them level out, that they're a good employee.
It's usually that 6-month mark. And, you know, going back to my staffing days, that I learned so much about what that hiring process was like in the workforce, and finding the right person, and not just finding a body to put in a line to, you know, whatever manufacturing plant is doing whatever, right? And so that's also why I think it's so cool that I got to be on the other side from an HR, accounting, understanding that entire side of the business, and finding the right people for those roles. And now I get to provide the tools to those people to ensure that you keep those good people.
Because when you find that balance, to shut it off. And this is why it's Unplug. Remember when we were talking about what we were going to name the podcast? We were going back and forth. I'm like, I don't really know. I know I want them to tell their story. I know I want them to inspire growth and get them ready to fight the next battle. But I'm like, I really want them to just like unplug. And you're like, Unplugged. It
was perfect.
So this is why you were the first guest.
And I was so excited, and you know, just kind of hearing about your idea to do this podcast for so long. And I remember when you kind of broke it down. I remember you and I talked for like an hour and a half one day, and just your idea of what you want this podcast to be able to do, and just almost just inspire others who maybe are really lost in their career. And you know, hearing other people's stories. And I know that you have so many awesome guests line up in their careers and in all different stages and walks of life, which is
that's
so
what's
cool.
going to help someone out there to the next step. Because it might not be your story out there that reaches everyone, but there's one person, and that's all that matters. It's quality, not quantity. And if someone is in that right now, we encourage you, because it's needed. You have to self-reflect. You have to pause. You have to unplug, and you have to hold yourself accountable. But if you're stuck in it, we really do hope this podcast down the road gives the wisdom and the support, and encourages you that it's okay to switch over from marketing or PR.
Gosh,
it was a journalist PR.
Let's see, ESPN broadcast journalist to PR, then to marketing, then to advertising, graphic design, website design, then to staffing, sales, then all over to
and y'all heard
HRIS.
her here. So if Paylocity is watching, or anyone, she says she wants to retire with Paylocity. So she did all of that growth in her 20s. And now she's in her 30s saying, I found the company, I found the role, you know, that I want to retire in. And she'll go all the way up to the top. I have no doubt.
That's the plan. That's the plan. But the leadership that I've had at Paylocity, and I know that I've mentioned, obviously, Callie, she has been a huge mentor to me in my success, because she was here about 2.5 years before me. And so without her, I mean, she answered my calls. When I tell you I called her like 15 times a day, I'm like, this is another dumb question. I need your help.
We need those people.
And you need those people.
We're human.
Exactly.
I mean, I think for the first year in my job where I work at, I probably annoyed the crud out of my boss.
Oh.
But I'm a how and a why person. So if I know the how, then I can get to the why.
And you just need to show me once, and I got it. Exactly.
You know, like, I just need to know, okay, because if you just tell me to do it, and I'm struggling in it, it's because I don't understand the how. The how behind it, and then I need to know why. Because whenever you move to another company, they have their own procedures.
Everybody has their own way of doing things, saying things. It could be the exact same thing as a different company, but completely different.
And so you get lost.
Understanding that is,
there's someone out there, and I you know, it said there's no such thing as a stupid question, especially when you're looking for the how and the why. Now, if you're really just asking a stupid question, you'll get a stupid response.
There are stupid questions. I mean, trust me. Some of the questions that I've been asked, I'm like,
go back.
Have we Googled this first? Like, you know, but you know, having those different leaders, and what's so cool is right now, I mean, entering my 30s, I can say there are a handful of not just leaders, but mentors that
we're
I
getting
have,
right into it. Perfect
which
segue.
is
Go
perfect
ahead.
segue, because I feel like one thing that if I could go back and tell my younger self, and anybody that's just starting their career right now, finding good mentors, and it doesn't just have to be one, is everything. Being hired, and I've always been a mentor at Paylocity for a lot of the new people coming in, and I absolutely love it so much because I feel like I would have not had the success that I've had at Paylocity without my mentor.
Mm-hmm.
And so being able to be that, obviously I'm not an expert. I am not proving or sitting here saying, oh, I know everything, I can mentor and answer all your questions. But with that being said, me being able to share my experiences and my knowledge and my viewpoints and perspectives to hopefully help some of the newer people coming in to Paylocity that are just as young and hungry as I was when I first came in, I find so much value in that, because I feel like I'm almost paying it forward. And I've mentored, probably about 4 or 5 people now, and they are all so different in so many different ways, and it's really also helped. Well, first of all, it's helped keep me sharp in my job. I mean, they'll ask me questions and I'm like, I've never been asked that before. Let me actually figure that out and research that. And my mentors now, besides Callie, I mean, my last director, Ryan Little, has been a huge impact. I always joke around and call him my work dad. He is such a dad, but the absolute best. And I'll still text him and call him to this day. He's the director over in the San Antonio market. And then Callie was my director last year. Of course, she still is my go-to. And now my new director this year, her name is Kristen Justice, which of course you've met her quite a few times. Absolutely phenomenal. I'll be the first to admit that when I was told that I'm gonna have a new director, and I don't dislike change. I think change is good. I think change is the only way to grow. Mm-hmm. But I was like, no, I don't want change yet. I like where I'm at. I just had the best year of my career last year, and I'm like, and now you're completely switching things. And I hadn't met her, and Callie and Katie, Lisa, my RVP, which also been just a huge mentor in my success as well. She's such a bulldog in the best way in this industry. I cannot say enough good things about just listening and learning from her as well. And both her and Callie are like, Rachel, we put you with Kristen. Just trust us. This is gonna be a phenomenal mentor for you. And I'm like,
they're gonna be a great team together.
Oh,
just from the brief moments I've seen y'all interact.
She is the sharpest woman. Just in the 3 months that she has been my boss, I'll just sit back and listen to her on meetings, and just every single time I walk away with notes of new things and new perspectives.
I also love that she supports you in the fact that when you brought up that you were coming down to this conference for PB Sheriff, she's like, I'll be there too.
She booked a flight. She's like, where are we meeting? And I'm like, all right. And
you didn't have to do it alone, and it was fruitful.
Mm-hmm. And she is, I think, exactly the right mentor for me to step into, to kind of elevate me to the next level in my career. And and so I'm really excited to see what this year and the years to come will be with her.
Growth to elevate.
Yep. See how we kind of brought that right on back. But bottom line, and what's really funny too, and I think I told you this, my little brother, I finally convinced him to move down here.
Yay.
After it took only 7.5 years. It's fine. It's fine. It took 7.5 years, but he moved on down here and he took the leap, and he got a job with a phenomenal company. He's actually working with a PEO out in Dallas, and he is doing great. I mean, I knew he would. He has the perfect personality for this industry, which has been really cool because he and I now speak the same language, and we're not exactly competitors, which is really awesome too. We work in very different size markets, which is awesome. And of course the PEO is obviously different from what I do. But I tell him,
you're not in Dallas.
I know, I'm not by myself.
Member.
And it's so funny because now my parents, actually, just complete sidetrack, my parents called me yesterday, and they were just out here. My mom was in Costa Rica with me for the 3 weeks. My dad flew out and met us there, and I was like, oh man, I spent 3 weeks with my parents. Love them so much.
And I'm sure they're mentors.
Oh, my parents are my whole heart. I am so close with them. They're my best friends. So is my brother. I come from a very close family.
Love it.
And so having him move out here.
You need to call my brother, who's actually down in Midland watching my children.
I will.
He's the fun uncle, Funkle.
The Funkle.
And he's doing a great job with them, so thank you, Josh. Yeah, I've been working with him for a couple of years to come to Midland and be next to your big sis.
Yes, you have to do it.
I don't know what it is about the big sis, like, but come.
Yep. It's
come. Like, be here.
Just be here. And I have had the best time having him move down. And I bought my house in November last year, moved in December, and I had an extra room, and I'm like, come on down. And it was the first time in 12 years that I had lived with somebody. And so I was like, all right, if there's anyone to rip the Band-Aid with,
it's your brother.
It's my brother.
Yeah, and I have a house that he has room in, and he's there now, and I'm like, don't go back.
Yep, you're like, just stay.
Don't go back over the road. But he is like my bestie, and it's rare when you get to say that your brother or your parents or whatever is someone that is a lifeline. And we have gratitude there. Well, our time is almost up, so I'm going to switch you to the fun stuff.
Yes, let's switch to the fun stuff.
This is Unplug with Mel, which you helped me name the podcast and everything. So one of the questions had to be, with all of the work stuff and the drive for the next level to elevate, what do you do besides stay an extra week in Costa Rica to unplug, to recharge, to re-energize, to not be so distractive of the to-do list, scrolling through the, social media, where do you just let it go? Okay, I got this. I need time. I'm drained, and I'm just going to refocus on Rachel. What do you do?
That's something that I still feel like I am, that I am still trying to master and figure out. But one thing that I do is, and as I share with you all the time, I travel all the time.
I love traveling too.
Because I have the ability to work remote, even though of course my meetings are in Texas, Dallas, and whatnot, but whenever I need to unplug, I like to book a plane ticket and go somewhere. Either it's somewhere new, maybe it's somewhere to, stay with one of my best girlfriends in Georgia. Maybe it's to go visit my friends in Florida and California and my family in Colorado, or just go somewhere completely new by myself. Me and my dog will just kind of go travel. He's been over, 20 states now or so he travels avidly. My giant 100-pound dog, but
he's adorable, even though he's big.
He is the cutest. He thinks he's 10 pounds. But I think that is one of the biggest ways that I unplug when I get antsy and I feel very overwhelmed, because I just kind of remove myself from the situation. But on an everyday basis, I think one of the biggest things for me is, one, I leave. I know this is very specific, but I do not take my work phone out of my office anymore.
Oh, wow.
So when I am done downstairs, I leave it there. And I think that has helped me big time, because, granted, I don't sign off at 3 p.m., but that's something, really making sure that I separate my work and my personal time at the end of the day is...
You're intentional with both.
Huge.
Work is work.
Yes, I'm very intentional and I'm very focused, depending on what I'm doing, what that time is meant to be for. And this is something that I am still, sometimes struggle with, but having something you love to do and a hobby outside of anything having to do with work, anything having to do, just something that is your specific time, whether that's going on walks, maybe you're an avid runner, maybe you like to bike, maybe you like to rock climb, maybe you like to paint, maybe you like to read.
What gets your heart going.
Yeah, having that time that you fully just unplug and almost refill your gas tank is everything. Because if you don't have an outlet, maybe that's working out. Me and my brother work out at 5:30. We shoot for 5. We snooze it till about 5:30 every single morning, and that's our main outlet. If getting that adrenaline and that workout and kind of get that energy running through me in the very beginning of the day sets my entire day up, and I'm more intentional with my time and my focus. And so whatever that is for you or whoever's listening, hold on to that. You're never too busy. Work, there's stuff that can always wait until the next day. You don't have to be working until 8 or 9 p.m. And I say that from experience.
Yeah. Me too.
And, you know, just kind of finding what that passion is outside of who you are, because I never want, you know, if I were to, you know, when I pass away many years from now, I don't want them to be like, she was really great at her job. I don't want my job or career to be mentioned once, no matter how much I take pride in that right now. I take a lot of pride in growing that, but you know, what else will people say about you? What else what other type of impact will you leave past, you know?
What's your legacy?
Yeah, what's that legacy look like? And that's something that I'm still trying to figure out.
Yeah.
I think that you're always going to be trying to figure that out, but if you don't take the time to unplug, you'll run yourself into the ground and you won't enjoy your day-to-day.
And you lose that momentum.
You lose that momentum and you get burnt out. And
that's when I think doubt and fear and frustration
anxiety
and resentment
and
all of those bad juju
failure takes over, instead of just kind of being able to take back and recognize, hey, I'm actually doing pretty okay.
I think when we unplug and we get that reset button going on, we come back renewed and refreshed, and we can see the spark of joy and hope, and it's just so apparent. And that's why why this is so dear on my heart, because there's someone out there that is burned on both ends.
Oh yeah,
there is someone going, I can't
so easily.
If one more person or one more whatever, I'm going to, that's too much. You've got to be intentional with who you are and what time you need to recharge. The last question, I can't believe our time's already over.
I know.
It's just kind of a summary real quick and stuff out of everything that you've said. The best piece of advice that you've ever received, and how it influenced your career or life in general, like a quote or maybe a takeaway that you live by. It's almost like your mantra now.
You know, I have two of them actually.
Yeah, it's fine. Share away.
One is something that my mom has always told me, which I think actually is something that I shared with you a little earlier, is obviously as we're getting older, life's gonna throw a lot of stuff at you. You're gonna, you know, we're all gonna age, and whether that's going from 20 to 25 or 25 to 30 or, you know, hitting the 40s or 50s. One thing that my mom always said is it doesn't matter how old you are, it matters how you are old. And that's kind of something that I've always lived by, that she got from my Nana, who passed away about 1.5 years ago. And she was a woman that lived her life to the absolute fullest. And, you know, kind of just always realizing that life is what you make of it. And it doesn't matter how old you are or where you are in life, every day is an opportunity to do something more that'll make you happy, to, you know, get 1% better than you were the day before. So that's one that I've always lived by. And then the second is one that I heard, I think it was honestly in college at one point when I was stressed. I was worried about, you know, going into the corporate world, what people are going to think of me. I had anxiety about, you know, my career and having to grow up, this, that, and the other. And somebody told me that absolutely no one or anything can make you feel a certain way, can make you feel inferior, can make you feel anxious, can pretty much make you feel any type of emotion without your consent.
So good.
And that is something that I've sat back and thought about in so many different situations, both personal and professional in my life, where, you know, maybe I am feeling overwhelmed. Maybe I'm so angry about something that someone said to me, or how someone treated me, or a breakup, or, you know, maybe somebody got a promotion over me that I wanted. And then I just took a step back and realized that the only reason I'm feeling this way is because I'm giving the consent for somebody to make me feel that way, or a situation to make me feel that way.
That's good.
And it just kind of gives you back control over yourself and your mindset, and just
shifts that perspective.
Everything shifts the perspective, and it makes you more intentional also about what you're allowing and how you talk to yourself.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And
that's a critical piece right there. Yeah.
Oh, critical. How you talk to yourself is everything. And it's so important to kind of be very intentional about that, because, and I guess another thing that my mom and my nan always used to tell me is, would you talk to someone else the way that you're talking to yourself?
Yeah, I've heard that sage advice too.
Mm-hmm. And
it's a good one.
Mm-hmm. But I know that was like a long-winded answer.
No, it's great. That's the recap of what
Mhm.
we're trying to do here. Rachael, I thank you for joining.
Thank you so much for having
Mel.
me.
I love that we got the first episode
Yes,
out of the way.
I'm so excited.
I can't wait to drop this episode for you guys to hear. You can find us on YouTube as well as on Spotify and Apple. We've enjoyed our time together. I'll see you on the other side.
Yes, I'll see you on the other side. Thanks for having me. So excited to see where this goes.
All right.